I mean, you've worked with some major I mean, Starbucks, Apple, like big household names, like companies that we all know. Um, how do you even begin to keep the brand consistent at that scale? Like when you're trying to communicate, some people sit down with, just their personal brand Facebook page or with one singular speech or something and try to keep this consistency. How do you do that at such a massive scale with some of these larger companies?
The first answer is super boring. I think you have to be quite operational.
Mm,
I'm a super operational leader, and it's sometimes not in the sexy things. It's in the little things. You know, the second is a humility to say,
mm,
I work for a phenomenal brand. And my job is not to innovate and make a name for myself. My job is to pay tribute to this brand and bring it to life the very best that I can in the context in which, I find myself. So in the instance of Apple and Starbucks, I was bringing those brands to China.
yeah.
Well, there's always this globalization question. How much of it is maintaining the global image of the brand and how much is localizing to the market? And I think for big brands like this, we want to be humble and say, people are coming to the Apple store because it's the Apple store. They don't want to come to the Chinese Apple store. There are lots of those, and a lot of them aren't real. They want the Apple store experience. So, how do I distill the things that really make the Apple store, and hold really true to those?
Yeah.
I remember having conversations because we're so specific about the way the brand is presented. There, you have to really have some data and really feel convicted about the things you wave your flag on that say China's different. One was the footfall. We have so many people in our stores, especially in the early days when we first opened retail. You would find people, sometimes people would open a door and like previous customers will fall out because the store is literally that packed.
Wow.
So you realize you need signage. You need this is not sexy marketing, but it is part of how we present the brand. And I think that that's another question, is how do we define the word marketing these days? For
Yeah.
me, it's about customer experience. So what is the customer's experience with the Apple brand? Falling out of my store is not a great customer experience. We're not accustomed to making wayfinding signage because it's not very beautiful. And yet I need it to make sure my customers are safe and they understand the right way. And these doors just can't be opened anymore. So we had to find ways to debate very, very small questions like, what's the best wayfinding sign? How do we build those? We don't have any of those anywhere in the world, but we do need them here. And having those discussions, it's a little surprising sometimes how much time you put into them, but that's how much we all care about the brand,
Yeah.
and making sure we represent the brand in print in case anyone photographs it and it's put in media, to the experience of the humans who are sort of blessing us with their interest to come into our store.
Right. Yeah, that's such a valuable way to look at it because I think so many times the conversation stops at how do you get a lead or how do you get a customer or how do you bring someone to you? But the experience once you're there is something that most people don't think about, and it's the reason that a lot of companies struggle is they don't think past the how do we get them here? What sale can we do? What's this like? And again, it's really interesting knowing your background, knowing your kind of history, like you've always cared about others' experiences. Like it started, that's what was kind of fueling the desire to get into medicine, and I want to have them to have a better experience with someone. I want them to be cared for the right way. And that seems like that's carried over into every single chapter moving forward. And that's I think that's really neat to see. You already leaned a little bit into the second part of this question, which is you have ran these companies over in China, these American-based companies, and taken them out into a different market. And again, my question is, how do you take that kind of well-known brand, that established brand, and how do you contextualize it without sacrificing what makes that brand that brand? And you've answered this a little bit already, but when you were first tasked with this and you had to decide like how much do I make this, like you said, the Chinese version of the Apple store, or how do I make this, how do I tweak it enough to be culturally relevant while also maintaining the brand integrity? How did you first even go about tackling that?
Something simple. And I thought it was so insightful. What you just said, and this is why you're so good at what you do, I wrote down, because you're right. I do care about others' experiences. I don't think I've ever articulated that so
Mm,
succinctly, but that's the core. We often come into things as business leaders thinking, what is my business objective? What is my mission?
mm,
What is my vision? What are my KPIs? Well, if I'm thinking about how many I want to sell or how I want to present my brand, what I'm focused on is inward versus who am I serving and what
Yeah.
experience do I want to give them? I think when we turn that vision outward, we want to, of course, tie it back to our own goals. But if we put the focus on the person we're serving or the person who we think is going to be interested in us, and how do we help them become aware, not so that I can sell them shit, but because I can interest them in something, and I believe they'll be delighted at the end of it. And it's
Yeah.
my job to make sure I understand that person, that I can validate they will in fact be delighted by the thing, because I'm not here to make a quick buck. And then I figure out how to engage them. And to your previous point, how do I create a seamless experience from online to offline, from the first moment they engage with me to the ongoing relationship that we hopefully build over time?
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like this science of joy, like how do you make that big brand very deeply personal? And that's where I think a brand like Apple really wins, is that it has become a emotional thing, like I remember a few years ago there was a commercial, and it was a teenage boy on his phone and like distracted all through the Christmas season. And it was a ton of views and hits on this video, and basically it came at the end, and he was filming this Christmas short for his family. It was like this very powerful short saying like he looks disconnected, but he's actually connecting really deeply and emotionally through the Apple product. And I remember my family watching it during that time, and I was just saying like that kind of nailed what an ad should be. Like it communicated this experience for the customer. It goes beyond just like how many megapixels in a camera, or what percentage discount. It's this very calculated, kind of scientific way of like explaining how you're going to feel when you have that product in hand, or when you go into one of these locations. And um, that is, like I said, it goes a lot deeper than just all of those stats. It's this very specific, and I think it takes a person like you, who, like I said, is so concerned about what is that person's experience initially.